Good evening. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and we are here every Friday night, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and rebroadcast on simulcast on cjmarsradio.com. And by the way, hey, CJ Mars has a chat room, too, that me and Ann are hanging out in right now. You can stop by and see us. We're also simulcast on 365 Live. And then Monday nights, we're rebroadcast on awakeradio.us and awakeradio.uk. Then Tuesday nights, we're on Hazy Radio. And then Wednesday nights, we're on Chip Tatum's new station, Firehorse Radio. So we are all over the place. You can't get rid of us. No matter if you try and shut me up, you can't. Okay, it's too late. Okay, we're everywhere. Okay, the only thing you could do is turn off your radio, and then you'll stop hearing me. But by the way, speaking of that, we got a big show coming up on Monday. We're going to be on Caravan to Midnight with John B. Wells. We're doing a huge show about the Las Vegas Walmart shooters. Okay, and what's going on is I got a whole bunch of people coming on with me. We have David Vanderbeek, who is a candidate for governor here in Nevada. He met these shooters. He knew these shooters. These shooters came to Las Vegas to work for his campaign. We have Gordon Martinez, who is was the candidate for sheriff here, but they just had the primary and he didn't pass on to the next level. But he's a 40-year veteran Las Vegas Metro detective. And he met these shooters as well because they were involved in this little political scene here in Vegas when they came to Vegas. We have their campaign manager, AJ, who was a friend of mine. And we have a candidate for assemblyman who is Howard Sheff, who knew these shooters again from this little group, but also, too, he knew them up at Bundy Ranch. So we're going to have them all on with me on John B. Wells' Caravan to Midnight Monday. And I did a special Opperman Report show last night with these guests. We put it together and did a show. But unfortunately, the recording was destroyed, so we could not get that podcast up. So anyway, tonight we're on freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, and there's some problems. We have to raise money. Okay, the station's in trouble. We're behind schedule on raising funds. So please visit freedomslips.com. And click on the donate button to keep the station going this month, because this month we're way behind. Hawk was just on the chat room saying about how he needed to raise some funds right away. Tonight we have Sheryl McCollum, okay, who is the director of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute. Now, one thing you'll remember, because I talk about Sheryl almost every week. She doesn't realize this, but every week I brag about my Pulitzer Prize nominated guest, okay? And that is, I'm talking about Sheryl McCollum. I must have mentioned it 1,000 times. I had a Pulitzer Prize nominated guest on my show, okay? But Sheryl's really cool, man. She's on Court TV all the time. She's out there. She runs a cold case investigative unit, like as a college course. And I'll let her tell you about it. But Sheryl, man, welcome to the show. Welcome back. You're one of my favorite guests. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much.
So tell us about yourself, and tell us about the Cold Case Investigative Unit and a little bit about yourself and what you do over there.
Well, I work at a local department, but also I teach college. So the way this came about is I used to bring actual cases to let the students kind of see what they could think of to do if we kind of hit a wall. And it just kind of matriculated into this beast of its own where I could not get them to stop. I mean, they would want to stay, at the college, past midnight. It was crazy. And so I, talked to other friends of mine at other colleges like Auburn University, Montgomery, and Faulkner University. And they were like, hey, we'll join this with you. And maybe we can team up. And at that time, the three of us had 3 different areas of expertise. So we thought, what if we're all looking at the same case and we've got about 300 students, give or take, we really might screw up and solve something, And then it just kind of built and built. Now we have, 20 colleges and over 100 experts and over 800 students. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
You know, that really is incredible when you think about it. All the people like the foot soldiers you got to work on stuff. That's huge.
Yes. It is crazy. And the students, they get no credit. They don't get a grade. It's not an actual class. Like, I will teach them in forensics or in crime scene, but when they come to me, it's after hours. So it's sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes on weekends. And, we try to make it so that when they go to department, they're really ready. And they've got things to talk about that, most college students would never have. Dr. Dwayne Thompson, you may be familiar with him out of Atlanta. He's a firearms expert.
Okay.
Well, one of our cases right now, Kirsten Davis, when she was shot, it was in the rain on a little 2-lane road. So Dr. Thompson was like, well, I know when we're going to do the reenactment. It's going to be raining, because that was such an incredible factor. That was this person in a car or out of a car? Were both cars moving at the time, or just Kirsten? So it was really important for the students to work that as though it was happening now. And, you've got people like Kim and Dr. Spatatelli and folks that like Holly Hughes and Alex Manning and Vince Velasquez. And these experts, let me brag on them for just a second. I don't have any money. We're a nonprofit, but we don't have any real money. I mean, we might get, $100 here and there, and every now and then get a significant amount, but that goes to like a bus so that we can all go revisit a crime scene together and walk it, or it goes to equipment for training or something that the family needs in order for us to push this case to where we need it to go. None of the experts are paid. None of the experts have ever asked me for anything. It is truly because people just, out of the kindness of their heart and being gracious to say, look, I'll come help. Because, Ed, it's easy to want to be a part of a Natalie Holloway. I mean, that's a famous case. That's easy to get people to help. But when you've got people like Guy Watkins, who's going to call me and say, hey, I want to help you with Kirsten Davis, and he's going to take a private airplane to fly to a little bitty town in Kansas to interview people, come on now. Kirsten Davis is not going to make him famous. It's not going to help on his resume at all. Nobody's ever heard of that child. But, that's the kind of thing that we see all the time.
Well, you know what? People haven't heard of Kirsten Davis. Why don't you tell us about her and a website where we can go in and look up her case?
Okay, sure. I mean, you're going to find very, very little, I'll tell you right now.
Really?
But she was a student at Berry College in Rome, Georgia. And her roommate, when they graduated, got a job in a little bitty town in Vidalia, Georgia, which is about almost 4 hours from Rome. So she said, look, I want you to come and see my first apartment, and I'm going to show you the school I'm going to be working at. And they were very excited. So over the July 4th weekend, Kirsten decided she was going to drive down and be with her friend, Tammy Preston. Well, she's got the address and the handwritten directions, because, of course, there was no GPS in 1991. And so she leaves Berry College, we know, at approximately 9:17, because we have the receipt from where she got money out of an ATM. So approximately 1 a.m., she is shot on Highway 297, which is a very remote, very dark. At 1 o'clock in the morning, there are no street lights, there are no houses. It's just out in the middle of nowhere, very rural Georgia. And she shot, Ed, with buckshot.
Really?
And for the listeners that don't know buckshot, it's usually used for bird hunting, because when the, shots come out, they spread out almost like a net, so you have a better chance of actually hitting a bird. So it's not used for deer hunting or anything like that. But if you shoot buckshot toward a moving vehicle and you're 10 feet away, there's a real good chance you're going to hit the person driving, even if you're not a good shot. So when the police first got to the scene, they thought there was a single car crash that she had just hydroplaned. And with the darkness and the rain, they thought she'd hit the windshield. And then it wasn't for a little while that they realized, no, she's been shot. And they went and, of course, made the notification to Tammy, and then called the parents, who were from Colorado at the time. And then it just kind of worked its way cold, how they do. This was somebody that had absolutely no enemies, no drug use, no pregnancies, no gang affiliations, nothing. She was a, college student from a very private, expensive college from Colorado. She had worked at Chick-fil-A. She was just a good kid. She worked on the campus of Berry at Camp Windshade. She was...
Now, was she driving when she got shot, or was she pulled over?
She was driving, and the car was still moving at approximately 45 miles an hour, and it hit a ravine and flipped over, and that's how it came to rest.
Okay, well, Sheryl, that has to be like a random kind of shooting, don't you think?
It appears to us. Now, we have already identified some people that we have a great bit of interest in.
Okay.
And we have turned over the majority of what we've got to the GBI. So at this point, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is kind of picking up where we felt like we needed to hand off to them, and they're doing it in a task force, which I'm real excited about, because the folks that we met with are not only very capable, which all the agents would be, but these folks have a vested interest because one of them is actually from the town, born and raised. He wants to see this solved. The special agent in charge is close to retirement. He would truly like to retire with this off the book, So they're fired up right now. They see kind of where we were going with the one witness that was interviewed, and they just kind of see that this thing is possibly at a point now where it can be solved.
So, but you got a bunch of suspects now. But okay, you don't want to give away too much information, right?
Right.
Yeah, I would guess that they're guys, local guys, and who live nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're talking about a really small town, and you're talking about somebody that was not unfamiliar with the criminal activities in that town. And you know as well as anybody, Ed, those folks like to talk, and those
right.
folks like to brag. And so we have been able to pinpoint some folks that heard people taking credit. And so I just think that needs to be explored and worked as only, the GBI can do at this point.
Okay, well, that's cool. Yeah, that seems like we should be able to get that one going. Now, now people want to...
I got some students that want to go kick in some doors, but I can't let them do that.
No, it's so tempting sometimes.
It is tempting. And I'll tell you something. After you sit with a mama or a daddy or siblings, you're so hyper aware of who you're working for.
Yeah.
That it makes you want to say, hey, I know what the law is, but I want to talk to this guy myself,
Now, if people want to fund your investigations for your cold case investigative research group, how would they do that? Do you have a PayPal? How would they do that?
No, we don't have a PayPal yet, but I have posted on Facebook, and so is Holly Hughes. Hughes and Manning is the attorneys that help us out, and they can send donations there, but there's also like websites where they can see the different cases. My Facebook page, my personal page, and then there's also a Cold Case Institute page. I love when people inbox me, and let me be very clear. I love when people inbox me with ideas because, everybody's lived these lives, and they have different areas that they understand crime, and they have different areas where they understand, hey, you know what I would do if I could. And a lot of times their ideas are so fantastic that it really gives us kind of a renewed sense of, hey, we have a plan. And so please inbox me. Because, again, I cannot stress how important civilians are. Sometimes, in law enforcement, you can be so trained you miss it. And one example that I usually give the students is DC Sniper. Everybody's running around looking for a white guy in a white van. They were slightly wrong.
Yeah.
So they were so trained, they kept saying serial killer when the guy wasn't a serial killer. So as soon as they had that wrong, then the rest kind of fell to the wayside too.
Hey, so you were telling me something about wine and crime?
Yes.
Crime and wine, what was it?
Yes. Anybody that's in the Atlanta area, June the 26th at 6 o'clock, can come to the Institute, and we're going to have a wine and crime evening. where you can bring a picnic basket or whatever you want, bring some wine or whatever your choice is, and we're going to bring the crime. And I'm actually going to start with one of our cold cases, and I'm going to walk you completely through it, and then I'm going to open it up for people to give us suggestions. You know, there's a couple that we've hit a wall with, and we just want some help, and we think that, again, the general public can do it.
You know, when I heard you say that, I thought that was like the coolest idea. And it's $25, isn't? What's the donation? It's really cheap, right?
Oh, it's nothing. And let me tell you what you get.
Yeah, it's like a night out.
It's a night out, but it's a night out with some really cool people. So if you come, every table will have an expert at the table. So you could have somebody from the Nancy Grace Show, from the, Jane Velaz Mitchell. You could have somebody come from the police department, like a high-ranking person or a detective or somebody like that. Each table is going to have somebody really cool there. So I've got a psychic coming. I've got a criminal profiler coming. I've got a chief of police coming. Holly Hughes is set to be there. Alex Manning is set to be there. Dr. Cindy Fascitelli, Dr. Dwayne Thompson. So there's going to be, a tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise in that room that, I tell the students all the time, y'all spend $20 to get in the club. You can spend $20 to come and help solve a case.
Well, I'd say it's a lot more than $20 to get to a club here in Vegas, man, if they get that. $20. Right. You just got to tip the valet guy $20.
Well, the students are going to a slightly less, posh club. Let me say that. But again, you spend that money, but it's to meet these people, and then you're working an actual case alongside these folks. And, if you're a fan of Cold Case Files or First 48, this is your chance. Because I'm going to treat you just like you're in my squad. I'm going to talk the same, I'm going to act the same, and I'm going to open it up and say, okay, what do you see? What do you got?
Yeah, that's the coolest thing. You know what? I don't know if you've done it, but, they have all these groups on Facebook, like the True Crime Chatters and Civil Discussions. All those true crime groups, there's so many of them on Facebook that I know would love this, man. They would be so into this.
Well, I haven't done anything like that. I've just put it, on my page, and I know Holly's put it on her and some of the students, but I will absolutely do that. Thank you.
I'm a member of a bunch of groups. Yeah, I'll help you out with that. I was thinking,
a great idea.
Vito Colucci, the famous PI, he lives here in Vegas, and I was thinking me and Vito could do something. We'll call it Rum and Bums. What do you think? And me and Vito we'll drink rum, we'll smoke cigars, and anybody comes along, we'll talk to them.
I love it, and I want to come to that.
Yeah, we would have a lot of fun.
I could sit in a room with you two men and listen to your stories and lies all night long.
Yeah, there you go, man. The stories get better as the night goes on.
Absolutely, and I'd pay more than $25 too.
Now, the book you got out there, because we make light of this and I joke about it, but you actually were nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for your book. Oh, wait a second, I don't have your book up on my blog. I don't believe this. I forgot to put your book up on my. What's your book called? It's
called Cold Case: Pathways to Justice. And basically, Betsy Ramsey and I wanted to name it that because when we worked together at the Spalding County Sheriff's Department running the Cold Case Squad, we worked cases extremely differently. I mean, polar opposites the way we attacked a case. But we always came to the same conclusion. We met somewhere in the woods, She kind of likes the traditional path of crime fighting. I like to be off the beaten path. But again, we get to the same spot. So we just thought, it doesn't matter if you're on the street or on the river or on the, sidewalk. It's just important that you're out there searching and working and, trying to solve it. So we just figure whatever path you're on, is just as important.
Okay, so what other kind of cases are you working on right now?
Well, we've got Vi Ripken, and Vi Ripken is the mother of Cal Ripken, the famous Orioles baseball player.
Okay.
And she was kidnapped 3 years ago in her own vehicle at gunpoint out in front of her house and driven around for 24 hours only to be driven back to her neighborhood, and he promptly got out of the car and walked away. He didn't hurt her. He didn't steal anything. He didn't ransom. Nothing. but he's still at large. And Cal Ripken has put up a $100,000 reward.
Oh, get out of here.
So, yeah. So there's 100,000 reasons for somebody to go to my Facebook page and look at this guy and see if you know who he is, because, you know, he's all excited about, you know, trying to find this guy that didn't hurt his mother, but absolutely could have, you know, killed her if he wanted to. And, you know, maybe somebody else is not going to be safe because of this guy. He's very brazen. You know, there's no question about that.
What city did that happen in?
In Aberdeen, Maryland. A little small
Aberdeen,
town
Maryland.
outside of Baltimore. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
Aberdeen.
Yeah, I'd like to work on that, man. $100,000. That's a nice little payday.
That's what I'm telling you. And this guy's got to be somewhere. So part of what we're trying to work on is fugitive apprehension, because she's actually the first live victim we've ever worked. So that's interesting for the students as well. But anybody that can go to my Facebook page and get the composite, if they just want to post it on their page and say, hey, anybody with information, you know, put out an AWIC. Anybody with information, contact Aberdeen Police.
Yeah, that's a lot of incentive to go after.
A lot of incentive.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, $10,000, you might not want the hassle, but $100,000, that's life-changing money.
That's right.
You know, so if you're afraid, you can move, you know.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take a look at that one. So what else are you working on?
We've also got Josh Powell, that case.
Okay.
Part of what we're working on with the family is we're trying to find the remains and, you know, the whereabouts of Stacy. So that's what we're working on.
Well, why don't you describe, for people that aren't familiar with the Powell case, why don't you give us a brief description? And I also want to ask you, is that father-in-law, is he still in prison or is he out? What's going on with him?
He's not in prison. He was released. But, you know, if I had to put money on it, I think he has a lot of knowledge of where she's at. And, you know, we'll see. But, you know, Josh Powell had the two little children that he claimed that he took camping in sub-zero weather. And, you know, while he was gone, his wife just left him, just disappeared, ran off, which, of course, made sense to no one because the children were still so little. And, you know, she was just cute and fun and had a good job and, you know, loved her family. She's not the type that's just going to run off and never contact her mom and dad or sisters or children ever again. That happens almost never. So when he was pushing that idea, that happened while, again, he's camping with little bitty children in sub-zero weather. You know, you just kind of say, well, there's your flag. You know, there's a problem with this story. And then he just forgets he's got a brand new job and he's supposed to be at work. He forgets to call people. He forgets about people at church that she has told, hey, by the way, if anything ever happens to me, Josh did it. So Ann Bremner was the attorney for the Powell family, her family. And so we worked through Ann to try to give them a little information at the time. But we, sadly, with all the experts, we did predict that he would harm himself and the children. And sadly, that's what he did.
Yeah.
He burnt the house down with all three of them inside and had killed the children before the fire started.
Yeah, and there was actually a woman from Child Protective Services who was the guardian who was he pulled the kids in through the front door. She was delivering the kids, I guess, and she was banging on the door trying to get in.
Yes, horrifying.
Right, and you hear the 911 tape, and the 911 operator was kind of being a jerk with her, too, on top of everything.
Right. The whole thing was a calamity, and the reality is, Ed, it wouldn't have mattered if the fire trucks were on the street.
That's true, too.
Over.
Yeah.
I mean, before the fire started, they had already perished. He was never coming out of the house alive. So it was traumatic, and it's horrible, and we can Monday morning quarterback with the 911 operator, but it's kind of like, what is this woman telling me? You know what I mean? It's like it was not easy to understand. Like, we knew what had happened before we heard the tape. But if you didn't, it was kind of like, what are you talking about? And it wasn't great. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't how you want 911 to respond. I'm just saying it was understandable that there was some confusion about why are you banging on the door, where are the kids, who are you, kind of thing.
Right. Now, but tell us about the father-in-law in that case.
The father-in-law went to prison because he was videotaping little girls in the neighborhood and had a bunch of child porn on the computers and had also made a bunch of videotape of his daughter-in-law before she went missing. And then while he's in prison, wrote love songs to her, claimed they had this big sexual relationship. So lots of problems with the father-in-law and the son/husband, and a lot of flags about possible motive. If you're sexually assaulting your children, for example, might be a good reason you want mom to disappear because they're going to make an outcry to her. And then once the net starts getting closer and closer and closer, you know, you're not going to let anybody survive at that point, is what it appears potentially could have happened.
How much time did the father-in-law do in jail?
I don't remember. I would just be guessing.
Can't be that much because this crime wasn't that old.
Right. I mean, I would just be guessing. But here's the deal.
Yeah.
When you have a sexual predator, they don't stop. So if I had to put money somewhere, he's going to reoffend. He's going to reoffend because he's not going to be able to stop himself.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make, though, is so many people think that when you get arrested for child pornography or child molestation, that you're in prison for 20 years. And, we should give them the death penalty. We should castrate them. But in actuality, we got a break coming up. Okay, well, I thought we had gotten rid of the breaks, but here we got a break coming up. We'll be right back after this break with my super guest, Sheryl McCollum, director of the Cold Case Investigative Unit. What's the name of your book again, Sheryl?
Cold Case, Pathways to Justice.
Cold Case, Pathways to Justice, and that's available on Amazon.com. And by the end of tonight, okay, I'm going to have that book. I'm going to have a link to it up on my website, the Opperman Report blog. We'll be back right after this. We have Sheryl for another half hour after this. Thank you. Okay, and we're back with the Opperman Report on freedomslips.com, simulcast on cjmarsradio.com. And I just want to thank our sponsors for helping us out here. One is Pacific West Bamboo. Pacific West Bamboo, #1 source for timber construction and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, and products. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, and they're servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. That's 503-839-8126. Their Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo, and their email is demroots@oppermail.com. But you can find a link to them again on my blog, The Opperman Report. Also, our newest sponsor is a really cool guy named Mike Gray, who owns InfinityHomePlans.com. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D architectural services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawing sets, and 3D models and renderings, and more. And hopefully we're going to have Mike call in on the after show, and you're going to get to meet him and everything that he's up to. Well, tonight we got with us Sheryl McCollum, the author of Cold Case, Pathways to Justice, a Pulitzer Prize nominated book, okay? She should have won, but I'm telling you, it was fixed, okay? She's gonna win. The fix was in, man, okay? And we're gonna work on this next. It's gonna be the next cold case we're working on. Okay. Who won that? Who won, Sheryl? Tell us.
Oh, I don't even know. Isn't that crazy? Some person nobody's ever heard of.
No, but God bless you, man. Who would have thought when you were writing this book, you never imagined you were going to be nominated for a Pulitzer Prize?
Oh, my
right.
gosh. When I got the call, I thought it was a prank.
Right.
I mean, I even went home and told my children, I said, listen, this has happened, but let me put it in perspective, okay? Dr. Seuss and Dr. Martin Luther King.
Wow.
I ain't going to win.
Oh, but that is so cool. God bless you, man. Yeah, that's something to really be proud of.
But I'll tell you the truth. I mean, honestly, it was such a team effort. I mean, you've seen the book. It's not me. There are 72 people that contributed something to that book. And, you can't even put a price to me on what that is worth, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to write a textbook because there wasn't one that fit what I needed, but I did not want it to read like a textbook. So I got folks like Gerdine Dyer, the crime writer, Catalina Bird, the poet. I mean, there's some really exceptional stuff in this book that I didn't write one word of. So again, my name might be on something along with Betsy Ramsey, but there's some folks that deserve so much credit. It's just incredible.
Well, now, but since you did that book, you must be getting offers like crazy from publishers to do another book, right?
We do occasionally. My issue is time. I'm a little busy.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me just to kind of sit down. When I wrote that book, my children were a little bit smaller, and I literally wrote the book during the afternoon when they took their nap. And so now that they're past the nap stage, it's a little bit more difficult for me to kind of just sit down and have quiet and time. But I will write another one, but it's going to be a little bit longer.
I hear you. I got the same problem too. I got a couple of books I want to do as well, and it's impossible to get the time.
Yep.
So now, what about you? Got any appearances coming up, like Nancy Grace? I know you're always on Court TV and HLN and that kind of stuff.
That's pretty fluid. It happens every so often. I was on twice last week, so I'm sure I'll try to do Nancy again in a week or so. Those kind of things come in, and Holly Hughes and I are working on some stuff that'll hopefully be on TV soon. So, we try to stay, kind of in the TV light because it just helps. The more people recognize you and what you're doing, they understand what the mission is better, and that's real important. And like you and I have talked about before, Nancy and I go way back, and Nancy has been extraordinarily good to me. And certainly not the greatest crime analyst in the world, and for her to have me on the show when she could have 120 others that are much smarter, that it means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's right. You were telling us off the air. So tell us a story about how you hooked up with Nancy Grace. That's interesting.
When I was with the Atlanta Police Department, I was assigned to the Major Case Division, and she was the prosecutor assigned to that division. So she literally was my prosecutor for 10 years before she became the Nancy Grace. And I got to tell you, she was awesome at the time because she was the first prosecutor I had ever seen that would come out to a crime scene in her own car after midnight. I had seen people come out maybe at 1 or 2 in the afternoon to walk it before they went to trial, but not while it was still active and hot, and certainly not in their own car without police escort. So I got a lot of respect for her very, very quickly when we used to work. And, the way she goes after the cases on TV, her personality in court is bigger than life. I mean, she believes in the cases. She believes she's doing it for justice and it's the right call. And her passion is second to none as far as I'm concerned.
Is she fun to hang out with, though, or is she always as intense as she is on the air?
She's fantastic to hang out with. She's kind and generous and giving. But let me say this. When she, gets her teeth into a case, is she going to let up at all? No. But if you had a loved one murdered or mistreated in any way, would you rather have a prosecutor that acted like that or one that barely returns your calls?
I hear you. I hear you with that.
I never once had a family complain about her, ever. Yeah. Ever. She would pray with them. She would cry with them. She would cuss with them. And, honey, when she got into court, she was literally working for that person that had been hurt. And it means the world to people. It just does.
How about defense attorneys? Have you heard of any of them complain about her? 1 or 2,
Ed,
maybe?
My phone went out. I can't hear you, Ed. I don't know what you said.
Yeah. Okay. There must be a couple of voodoo dolls with Nancy Grace voodoo dolls getting stuck in them.
Oh, you might find a defense attorney or two or a secretary, somewhere that has something to say differently than me. But again, all I can tell you is what I personally know. And, I mean, she has just been, like I said, I've got 2 children. And she makes, a lot of money. And she is famous. And she doesn't have to return a call to me. But she threw me not 1, but 2 baby showers.
Oh, get out of here. How cool is that?
But that's what I'm saying. And
Okay.
she did it after she was famous. I mean, my kids are not that old. So, I mean, she was already, Nancy Grace at that point.
Right.
And I'm like, she didn't have to do that. And so I don't have anything but good things to say. And, is she opinionated? Good Lord, yes. But it's kind of like your doctor. Don't you want them to be?
Did she ever turn off your mic?
I want my prosecutor talking. I want them knowledgeable. I want them not afraid of anything. I don't want anybody going into court, wishy-washy and apprehensive.
Did she ever turn off your mic on the show?
Pardon me?
Did she ever turn off your mic? Turn off her mic.
She's never turned off mine.
Okay.
She did come in my ear once during a commercial break, but that's okay.
Oh, really? What'd you say?
Okay. I think the way I phrased something, she thought that it needed to be clearer.
Okay.
And I had said something, I guess, a little too Southern, and it was like, you don't need to be, you don't want to, in other words, you've got 30 seconds or 20 seconds or sometimes 7 seconds. So you don't want to say something that only one region of the country is going to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I got you.
You want to be real clear. So, I mean, it was really good advice more than anything else, but she's never turned off my mic. She's never, dressed me down too badly.
Now that you mentioned Nancy Grace, my daughter, she still does it now. She's going to be 14 soon, but for years, bombshell tonight, making fun of Nancy Grace since she was little, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun, man.
But Holly, you and I joke because what will happen to you, no matter what show you're on. I mean, I've done the Today Show and several of them, and what'll happen is you're in the middle of giving this answer that you think is just genius, right? And somebody will come in and go, Ralph. Well, it kind of throws you off because now this guy's talking in your ear, telling you basically to hush,
right.
But you're not done. So you don't want to stop mid-sentence and sound like an idiot. And the one that is so clear in my mind, I would ask about Casey Anthony, specifically the trunk. And from a crime analyst standpoint, what did I think? Well, I did not realize I had 4 seconds. I thought it was going to be a standard answer where I might have, 19 seconds. So I said, well, for a crime analyst, having the kid in the trunk was fabulous. Rap. I'm like, oh, gosh. I can't rap now. I've just said it's good to put a dead child in the trunk. I was leading up to the answer because for me, there would be so much forensic evidence in that trunk that it would be a money tree. So it was a good thing the child was in the trunk and not, thrown in the river. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't get that far. And, of course, during the commercial break, Holly Hughes is falling off the chair laughing, going, oh, that was brilliant, McCollum. And I'm like, thank you. Feel free to quote me.
And on all these message boards and chat rooms, everybody is taking you to forget it. They're all burning alive, man. You make one little mistake, forget it.
Yes, going, did she just say that?
Yeah.
So, you learn, even though they say rap, keep talking. Keep talking till they cut you off.
That reminds me. Now, what do you think about this? Something I'm noticing lately, especially with this Jodi Arias trial. Because, I'm active in the chat rooms and the discussion boards and stuff like that on Facebook and different things. And now they had 2 expert witnesses that came out for the defense, psychiatric expert witnesses. And these guys were shredded to pieces. And even they had their personal life investigated. The woman who did the domestic violence testimony was threatened in real life. She was afraid to come back. What do you think about that kind of stuff?
Honestly, it's part of the gig. We get all kind of letters. We get all kind of threats. I call it all fan mail. And if you're going to put yourself out there and you're testifying in court, and this is where criminals are going to be, and you're trying to put somebody in prison, that's part of it. Ed, you've been threatened. We've all been threatened. But, you know, my standard thing is, I mean, there's worse ways to get hurt, you know?
I know, but don't you think...
I mean, if I get hurt, honestly, because I'm doing the right thing for another human being, cool.
Yeah, but don't you think the intimidation factor, you know, if I'm going to intimidate a witness, I'm risking...
For who?
Sorry?
For who? For who? You wouldn't be intimidated. I'm not intimidated.
No, I guess you're right. You know what? I guess you're right. I get involved in all kind of crazy stuff.
Freaking call me and threaten me right now and tell me not to go on the Opperman report. I'll come on your show every freaking day until me and you are sick of it.
I guess you're right. But it just, it kind of, I don't know. I'm disturbed by this thing about how expert witnesses are being investigated.
The threat only has power if you let it. Because I'll tell you, the only people that you really ought to be afraid of for the most part are the ones that don't even let you know they're there. But the one that's going to hide in a basement with a fake name and a fake address that's going to tell you what they're going to do to you, they ain't going to do jack.
I agree with you as far as that goes. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, so, you know, unless it's somebody like, oh, Lord, that's Fred Jackson, Washington, that lives at 239 Pilot Road. I mean, unless you know who it is threatening you and he tells you, I'm coming at 7:36 to cut your throat, that's a different game. That's a different ball game. But just some arbitrary, you know, I'm bored, so I'm going to start threatening people because Jodi Arias is famous, so I can be famous by proxy.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, we can get into that whole thing because you and me had some discussions on the last show we were on about a certain murder that took place here in Vegas. And,
Sure.
And I thought it was a good idea to take that tape and post it on their Facebook page of the guy who also lives here in Vegas. I just thought he might want to hear it, and I guess it wasn't the smartest thing to do. Yeah.
I mean, you know, people know, like, for the most part, people know where you are 40 hours a week. They don't show up there. You know, they know better for the most part too.
What other big exciting cases are you working on these days?
Well, the other exciting case that's coming up for a reenactment is Morris Ford Bridge, which is the site of the last mass lynching in the United States. And it occurred in Monroe, Georgia, where 4 African Americans were murdered. They were shot over 100 times apiece, July 25th, 1946. So it's also the coldest case that we're actively working, but what's happened, we thought we had pinpointed pretty good where the actual murder took place based on everybody's memory and the people that are still alive in the town that knew. So we went and asked Dr. Terry Powis at Kennesaw State University, who's an archaeologist, if he would help us excavate the crime scene. Well, he brings his students. Georgia State University brings their student that had the ground penetrating equipment. My students come out. And the first thing we all had to do, the experts included, and Claire Farley was there from the DA's office, Holly Hughes was there, Janice Duncan was there from corrections. We had folks from DNR. Chris Robinson was there, who's a ballistics guy who ran the crime lab for APD. Really cool people at the scene. So we cleared it out first, and then we started excavating, just like the architects knew to do. And within 45 minutes, we had our first shell casing.
Wow.
After 3 hours, we had 27 bullets, fragments, or casings. We've been back 3 times, and we have over 80 bullets, fragments, or casings. And Chris Robinson was able to ID some of them to say, here's the deal. We know this particular, like, wadding was, gun shell was prior to 1950 because they went to plastic, and this is still cardboard. And then others, there was like different 38s, and the striations, he could visually tell you this was from a different 38. And in 1946, a 38 was a standard police issued, revolver. So it was just, it was interesting that, here you had all these people here all telling you the same thing. The guy from DNR, the guy, has a expertise in the Civil War, so he could identify buttons and it was crazy. So everything we found was identified and bagged and tagged and put on the computer. And when you look at how it's generated, you can see, exactly where the whole crime took place. It was fascinating. And one of the most fascinating people that helped us with this case is a guy by the name of Johnny Lee Cleary, and he's the ex-Imperial Wizard for the Klan. And as you know, I teach at a predominantly African-American college. So when you tell my students that, hey, guess what, the Klan's coming, they're like, okay, Mac, you have lost your mind. But he literally turned out to be one of the best speakers I've ever heard in my life, Ed, truly. And you should have him on your show. Yeah. I don't even want to tell you his story. You should literally contact him and ask him to come on just to tell his story, because my students started off in a room. We met at an undisclosed location because he was under a lot of death threats at the time, and his were literally truthful. They were going to kill him if they could. But, we go in and we meet with him, and my students are a little angry, but the more he talked, that anger just subsided, and then it became, okay, dude, we understand. We get what happened, and it can happen to anybody. It happens all the time. There are a lot of people that join street gangs and get into selling drugs or hate crime because something else was going on. But it would be, I promise you, I could tell you the whole story right now, and you would love to hear it. But if you could hear him, you would be so captivated. And he needs to tell it. He needs to take the whole hour. It's just tremendous.
Well, you know what you do? Are you kidding me? Make a list of suggestions of guests like that, because I know you had a Black Panther guy too as well. And
sure.
I'll take any recommendation you have. I would love that. I will definitely have this down. Now we're down to 5 minutes, but we're down to the last 5 minutes, so we don't have that much time. And I really appreciate you coming on and your book.
Oh no, I appreciate it. And I tell you, it always cracks me up when you talking about the Pulitzer, but it does mean a lot. I mean, it's one of those things that you never see coming. You don't spend your career and everything, and that kind of thing is happening. And whoever thought enough to send that in on our behalf, I mean, it does mean a lot. But you put it in perspective, Ed. You know what I mean?
When you have your crime and wine party, right? You guys can have a drinking game. You put my show on. Every time I mention the Pulitzer Prize, everybody takes a drink. Because I don't think a week goes by I don't mention it. Okay,
that is
it's like
awesome.
I want it. I've always want it. So
I've always wanted to be a part of a drinking game. Are you kidding? That is fantastic.
Yeah, I'll name it.
That's fantastic.
So real quick, tell us how can we support the Cold Case Investigative Unit? What can we do?
Honestly, like I said earlier, anybody that wants to inbox me with suggestions or ideas, anybody that wants to help us on a case, you don't have to be a student of mine. If anybody has a general area of expertise, I feel free to call you and say, hey, what do you think? We use PIs every now and then to give us ideas of how to do something if we want to work something really unique. So anybody that has an idea or an area of expertise, let me know, because we could absolutely use the help. You can get me on Facebook, Instagram. You can go to our website, or, you can call me at the college. You call me at the police department. It doesn't matter. We have a lot of people.
What college would they call you?
Well, it would be Barter, Bauder, Barter College. We're right across the street from Georgia Tech. And again, you leave me a message, I promise I'll call you back. If you inbox me on Facebook, I promise I will call you back. I call people all the time, and you would be surprised, the things that the general public gives me. And also I get, retired cops call. I get, other people saying, hey, I worked in this industry for a lot of years, and I want to offer this or suggest that. And it's remarkable.
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of Sheryl, you can go to my blog, The Opperman Report, and there's a couple of posts on there about her from this show and also the last show we did. There's also a link to the last show we did. And I'll put a link up to your Facebook page there too, so people can get a hold of you. If they want to, they should really support this. Yeah, that's really great, man.
And I appreciate it. And, if they can't come, but they want to, send $5, it would be so appreciative, because, again, what we're trying to do right now, there is a weapon in a river that we think we can locate on one of the cold cases, but it's going to cost us some money to get down to the place. All the equipment's been donated, the underwater crime scene stuff. We're ready. I've just got to get my 50 people out there. So that's one of the things we're going to do with the money from Wine and Crime, just so they know. It's going to get the 50 experts and students down, on the riverbank to try to get this weapon out of there so that we can cross-check it with what we know happened.
Yeah, my ex-partner.
I appreciate all you're doing, too.
Oh, no, don't worry about me. My ex-partner was NYPD Harbor Aviation, and they also do some private, diving for evidence and stuff like that for hire. That's an expensive operation, I can tell you right now.
Very, very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, the average
But I appreciate all you've continued to do, Ed, and I think that's something that people need to understand, too. We really appreciate it.
Sheryl, thank you very much. People don't appreciate me enough, and I want to do a whole show about that one day. Sheryl, I love you. I love your personality, your Southern charm. Sheryl McCollum, the author of Cold Case, Pathways to Justice, Pulitzer Prize nominated. Thank you very much, Sheryl. We'll see you. I'll call you.
Thank you.
Have you on a couple